Good morning, everyone. This is Wednesday morning. I am not feeling well still. I haven't done anything for my own health care because I've been trying to plow through some stuff for other people without pause, even if it's not a full 8 hours a day. It's still, I'm picking away at these tasks and it's getting pretty challenging because I need a respite. But I wanted to talk about addictions and homelessness, and I'm just going to be brief. Addictions, I'll probably do a part two. Addictions, homelessness, and then I decided to add mental health because of um, when you get to a certain place with your mental health, you struggle. And when you struggle, it is, and addictions and alcoholism, to me, as an individual and a person with lived experience and as a healthcare provider, it's in a category of mental health. Alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, opioid use disorder, all these different things. Is that even one? Opioid use. There's treatments, there's treatment plans, there's billable to insurance, treatment centers, treatment medications, therapy, group classes. Just like if you were to have cancer or diabetes or grief, there's things to do with grief. ICD-10 has a lot of little codes for different ailments. I mean, what do they have on their paper cut? I'll come back to see if they have things like that. It could just be like regular, skin lesion, but I'll look and see the specifics. They broke stuff down. What happens when you have mental health disorders and you have PTSD and you have low self-esteem because you were like what happens to people like me that were abused as children and sexually assaulted and physically abused? There's no program for me that I know of. If you know, please put a comment down there. What happens when somebody has been in foster care? There could be programs set up where there's certain scholarships or housing or like groups where someone can help you, and it's only available for certain people. And I'm glad they do that because I've gotten a phone call from a homeless foster child, and it's like their 18th birthday. They're out. Doesn't matter if they're in 11th grade, middle of 12th grade, pregnant. Like, as if they didn't get adopted, they're out. They're out. They're not allowed to really talk to the parent. Maybe they give them a $20 bill. I don't even know what the rules are versus what the parents say. Okay, you're out of the system. I mean, they're getting paid to watch that child. Maybe they just look at it as a job is done. I've gotten a phone call from a young woman from my church, my old church, who was struggling pretty hardcore. This is where my frustration and guilt and overwhelming comes in. It's bad enough to be in a situation, but then when I'm unable to help somebody who's in a place where I know how hard that is to get help, that makes me super mad at myself. That makes me mad at my higher power. That makes me almost feel lazy. Like, well, then you stay stuck and stay broke. Then you don't have to worry about some of the drama that comes in. But when I live in my own housing program, when I have my own strict rules, when I have the landlord saying no visitors or no more than 2 people and no kids in the apartment, and like literally you have places say no visitors, or you can have visitors but they have to leave by 8:30 p.m. and all these different things. If this person comes to the housing program and they do something like smoke on the property or something, you're going to be evicted. Or if they get in an argument with somebody. So there's all these rules with the management. I don't own the property. And there's your own rules. I have kids, whether they're under 18 or over 18. You don't know who the people are. They're not like your best friends you grow up with in elementary school and you kept in touch and you hang out all the time, go camping together. It's like someone that you are acquaintance with or you used to be friends with. Like, I have people that I used to be friends with or relatives with back in the 80s and the 90s when I was doing stupid stuff. And I don't know, they progress. Like, if you're in addictions, for NA way is, the NA way to say is, it's a progressive disease. And I was, the opposite of the healing part is progress, not perfection, when you're going away from the active addictions. Progressive, even when you're not actively using, the disease is progressive. And for NA, alcohol is a drug, period. And when you end up homeless, when you end up losing a job, when you end up, all those things happened to me after I got clean and sober. Some of them happened to me when I was not clean and sober. So then the common denominator is moi here. What is the underlying cause of the struggle? People go into NA and AA and Al-Anon and all these different things. Even then they have Nicotine Anonymous. They have all these different things. And a lot of people, they come up, they get their education, they get their job, they buy their house, they are able to get a decent car after a few years, help their kids get through school and help their kids when their kids have kids. But for some reason, for me, I've stayed stuck in some, place that's not sustainable. And if I had people that were hurting and I couldn't say, oh, come over to my house, if I did have a apartment above a garage or a second lot with a, home on it, maybe I could invite someone over. But it's the thing where you have the squatter's rights. If somebody comes in and you invite them in, and all of a sudden they won't leave, then you got a whole nother problem. And if you're doing well, I don't know what it's like to be doing well financially and sustainable and having a home that I own and all these different things, these long-term goals. I feel like nobody would want to mess with trying to do that. But if you do have a better income, you potentially could figure something. I don't know. Some of those things you can't figure out, but you would be able to hire lawyers. You would be able to potentially take time off to deal with certain things. But people think about that because sometimes you're getting used. It's not just I'm helping somebody. You're getting used and you don't realize it, that you're being exploited. And going back to my story, having been a victim of abuse and sexual assaults, both before I was 18 and after I was 18, there was not any help whatsoever. And there has not been any help. I wanted to do, it was EDMR. I always forget what the D and the M go. And, or EMDR. Sorry, I forget. EDMR. Whatever the eye-directional movement. I tried to do a lot of different things, and people wouldn't work with me because I was desperate to get unstuck so that I can live a productive life and be a productive member of society and not feel like a mooch, But what happens when yourself and your kids are about to lose everything? For me, it was fleeing domestic violence was the main thing. And other things that people were judging us. And I told you the first time I became homeless was because I went to my mom's 2 funerals and they rented my room out to somebody else when I already said I was going to continue my lease. They already rented out. So when I got back, all I could do was pack and leave. It was a nightmare. And I've been still dealing with that nightmare of all the clutter and all the junk that I had attached to me. It was embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be stuck in a rut and try to go to school and hustle and put the kids through school, like the regular elementary, middle school, high school, and then be struggling so much. When I became an adult, my parents, my family, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my siblings, none of them were responsible for me and my well-being. My ex-husband was responsible for paying child support. He did not, so that didn't help. He did not pay a penny of it. The system was failed me and my kids, mainly the kids, because there was no. I didn't even know what the word alimony meant. There should have been some alimony added to that judgment. I don't know why the judge did, or the lawyer didn't put that on the judgment, but there's a lot of stuff missing from that judgment. Debts and different things that should have been on there. And I actually had zeroed for child support because I was getting forced to be on welfare, and they're like, you have to get the spouse and the parent of your kids to do all this stuff. And I was in hiding from him. So I was trying to waive things because every time I went to the courthouse or when I went to get a restraining order, they put my address on the paperwork that he's getting. I'm in hiding. Like, that's a stupid system. Put address on file with the court. This is also public documentation. Anybody can see any of these papers. And I found somebody at the time to put my address, but nowadays I wouldn't. But that's also putting those people in danger. I have a friend from the program who contacted me, and I was asking about her to my child the other day because of common professions. And I haven't spoken to this person in years. I don't even know what the last messages were. Right when I said that I didn't have a safety address to put on, like, I don't have a P.O. box, and I have they want you to put your address where you can get mail. I can understand getting mail, but they should have, like, a mailbox at the courthouse or something. I don't know. Maybe, like, if you're dealing with that, maybe you can get a grant to get a mailbox, a P.O. box or something, if they allow that. Anyways, that's a dangerous thing. I heard that they changed that system. But the first thing you go in to get a restraining order, they want to know your address, social security number, your kid's birthday, all these different things. Like, I don't want to remind him. I don't want the sheriff delivering all these clues about my life and writing down what happened. He gets that too, between the divorce and restraining. He gets everything you handwrite. He gets, and it becomes public. That seems personal. I don't know. That seems. Domestic violence is very serious, and that's whether it's abuse, assault, sexual abuse, like all that stuff. It goes on a piece of paper. It's you know what happens? Retaliation happens. They read that, and then they become even more angry because you tattle on what happened inside their house. But you did it because you needed to keep yourself safe so that you were alive. So my friend told me a few years ago when my ex was released from the prison that I could leave an emergency kit at her house. I had developed a plan where nobody would help except for one security guard at my school. The security lead went to the security guard and said, help this woman. And he helped a little bit, and I couldn't get help. They have domestic violence support and a safety plan the police are supposed to work with you with. I've called them for years. Just call, leave message, not get through. They never did a safety plan. I was trying to go to small groups that some lady had that was fleeing. There's people that flee, change their name, go into protection, change their social security number, leave the state, and go into hiding. It's kind of like witness protection, but victim protection program. So I met some people that had to deal with this stuff where there's not a budget to deal with. I mean, a piece of paper, someone knocks on your door and you have this, stay back, I have this restraining order, you can't, by the time 911 gets there, or the police, you call 911, you don't know if you're going to be dead or alive. You don't know. Because unless they're camped right outside and watch the person come up to the door, they're not going to get there that fast. And that piece of paper is not a shield. And it was very terrifying. So no family was helping until someone tried to swindle for tax reasons. Then they did a narcissistic move to deposit money so they can get a tax break. So it wasn't a genuine help. And then any support, my grandmother said that any support that my mom would have left us for our life insurance policies was taken by another family member. And that could have helped. If I could have had that money in my account, instead of going to a shelter and dealing with all this stuff, I could have just got an apartment. My manager, when I left my ex, he's put us into homelessness again, with me and my small kids, 3 and 4 years old. That manager loved me. I told her, take me out the lease. I don't want any. I don't know what he's going to do. I'm not here to pay. I was paying the lease. He was working full time. I was paying the rent. He was lazy. I bought my house that he sold for $5,000. That was my money. If he would have used his own money, which he didn't have any, he would not have sold 3 acres and a full livable house for $5,000. This idiot. So all these things happened because I lost control. I had no control over the situation, and it happened for years as an adult. And the manager at the other apartment said, I have another place for you in such a certain part of town. I really want you and your kids to move there. And I was scared that I couldn't do it. So I ended up in these housing programs. And it felt like I was in prison. No, I hadn't been in prison, but it felt like my ex had. It felt like prison, except instead of having some free time in recess, I thought recess, you had to bust your butt. Some of us, and as a black woman, I had to bust my behind. A lot of the people were staying in the house, watch TV all day, but they made me a very comprehensive plan. There's things I had to do. It turned into 60 hours a week plus of classes, mostly volunteer work that they said I had to do for the $400-something in welfare per month. When I got out of the shelter after 6 weeks, every place after that charged you rent and utilities were charged. Rent was not like, oh, it's a low-income place, or oh, it's $200, oh, it's $400. Rent was pretty much 90-something%. So if you didn't put the utilities in your name, they charge you $100-something a month. So I put them in my name, and by the time they took the welfare, there was no $100 left. I feel like I had like $40 left or something, or $60 left. So they would take like 90% of my income, and kept the lights off, the heat down, TV off, just had sometimes just a radio on. But nobody else was responsible for me. The system was not responsible for me. I had a job when I became homeless. If I had gone to that other apartment, it probably would have been $600. I probably would have been able to buy a house. But I wouldn't have put my kids in the same school, and I wouldn't have maybe had that same path. Maybe I could have, but so there could have been a different path. I can't go back in time and fix it. But I feel like the freedoms of being able to work when you need to work, and they blocked me from going to school when I needed to go to school. And that set me back $40,000 for having to redo my undergrad. Just a lot of things that pushed back the time that I went to my med school. It would have been easier, and it would have been, because they had different ways of testing. They got really strict when I got into school, between the board exam being separate tests. If you failed one part, people before me could just take that part instead of the entire test. They didn't have the remediation stuff, issues if you had to retake a test, or if you missed a test because you were out of town or something. So there's all these things that got harder, and the price of everything went high. Some of the people that graduated years and decades before, it was like 1/10, 1/50th of the price that it cost us to go to med school. And a lot of that was when the loan skyrocketed up another, was it 20 grand a year or something, that they pushed it up for graduate schools. My tuition followed right in suit. So I went from borrowing less money to borrowing the max and more. And it shouldn't have been like that. My debt shouldn't be this high because I was borrowing less the first 2 years. I don't even know how this happened. There's a lot of problems that I had from the system. Again, they will pick and choose. People say, I want to go back to school. Most of the people say, go ahead. We'll even pay for it. We'll even get you a scholarship where you can get all this stuff. We'll pay for your computer, your books, your transportation, your kids' daycare. But for some people say, no, you can't go back to school. So, but I'm already a bachelor. I already have a bachelor's. I'm just going to go into grad. Whether that be, some people could be master, PhD, and then medical graduate school, like a professional program. They pick and choose. I'm a black woman. My friend was white. She got a domestic violence scholarship where she got everything paid for, including her cigarettes. And she went to 7-Eleven, got Slurpees for her kid. They paid for everything that she had to receive. No questions asked. And I applied for the same scholarship, but I couldn't get anybody, an escrow, to fill out the form. And then she dropped out of school. I didn't. Very ironic. But sometimes if you were responsible, you try to make it work the best you can because you know you're responsible. It's not saying that if you get support, you're going to just blow it off and take it easy. That was just her personality. And some people that were in a program that said they were clean and sober, they ended up saying, no, I really wasn't clean and sober. Because they were functioning. They weren't functioning like working. They were functioning just being alive and taking care of their house. Certain people were functional users, like how functional alcoholics. Sometimes when people they're self-medicating, or they're keeping themselves from getting sick, or they're taking the edge off, they may be dealing with something like I was from my past, where they can get through their day. They could suit up and show up and go on business trips and apply for the next level job, work their way up the corporate ladder, because they do take the edge off. I'm not promoting doing that. But I think what our system is flawed is, our family networks aren't there, friend networks aren't there, neighborly, churchly networks, community networks aren't there. So family, community, and then our medical system is very flawed. They charge tons of money. They get paid tons more money than I do, or I can do counseling, as well as healthcare, as well as deliver babies. And they restrict and block me from that. And when I do get to do what I need to do, they pay me the smallest amount. And then it makes me, 1 month away from not being able to pay my rent, which rent is due in a week. If it weren't for my family, I would have already been on the streets. I redid my USDA loan, and I had way more money in my account 2 years ago. When I went to go buy a house, I had tens of thousands of dollars in my bank accounts. And now I got to put them all at like dozens of dollars. Why? Every time you move, when you want to buy a house for $500, $600, $700, $800, $900, even $1,000, $1,200 a month, when you rent for thousands of dollars a month, your savings disappears because the price of the rent goes up, but the job either stays level or goes down. So I know I'm the common denominator. I know that I'm the one that's getting paid low wages. I know I'm the one that's gotten laid off a job. I know I'm the one who's not gotten jobs that I qualified for on paper. And I know I'm the one that's struggling with the business when I wasn't able to do the 1 or 2 things that our business teacher taught. And the last business teacher should have been fired day 1, by the way. So how do you get help with that? And how do you keep yourself up off the street? I pray to my higher power for manna from heaven. That's all. Thinking of Moses and the people wandering around in circles in the desert, getting manna, getting food, getting water. And so the only thing that I base my life on, which I've done for years, is faith and hope. But God also gave me a brain and the ability to speak and read and write. So it's one of those things where you think of people that should be getting welfare and aren't versus the people that are getting welfare and shouldn't be. You know, people expect that I'm getting welfare. I tried to get energy assistance and it screwed up yesterday, and the welfare office called me and said, what, you don't want these other services? Because we can't help you, but we got your application. It said it was blank. It didn't say what it was for. Are you sure you don't want food stamps? And I'm like, I can't afford food. I racked up my credit card, me and my boyfriend, on food. I just see what I'm eating. Kale and bananas is what he bought, and water. Lentils, and some stuff, some salads and stuff from the Amish markets or the farmers markets. That's all I'm eating. This has some nuts. I got years of nuts in there that I'm still eating on. A few seeds here and there, but it's all really expensive. Just food that lentils and beans, all that used to be cheap. It's still cheap, but I'm not eating meat. I know my time is going to be up and I'm getting anxious about it, but it's all on me. I can't expect the world to lift me up. If I have to go apply back at the post office, close the clinic down, but I'm trying to follow God's will and not just bail. No. They say in the meetings, don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. And I'm about to quit everything. Because I've already been homeless so many times. And if it wasn't for my one sponsor, I wouldn't even have found that shelter. And I had some people offer me different housing situations, but peace, guys.